Hi everyone, welcome to the 13th day of base SAS session. Till now we have covered most of the advanced topics from base SAS, and we have covered many basic things which are very helpful in order to be a good programmer for you in SAS. Today we are going to cover the various ways how you combine data sets into SAS. Basically it could be your merge, union, or other ways how you can create a subset of a data set. So before I go ahead and start with the merging data sets, before, let me give you some brief ideas or the brief ways how you can first of all subset your SAS data set. So in order to subset a data set or SAS data set involves selecting observation from one data set by defining the selection criteria, and usually in a where clause or subsetting if statement. As an example, suppose you want to select all observation from a permanent SAS data set survey where the the value is f. So they have taken a data set called survey. What we can take, so let me just go ahead and see if we can use any data set from our SAS help library. So let's say proc print. Let me just go ahead and look at the data. So let's say I have by. This is a data set which is given here. No, I will not take this BMT. Okay, so let's see, this is a data set, and what is label, name is T. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create various subsets of this data set into my work library, and wherein I will be creating subsets of this data set. So let me write data, this SAS help dot, this is BMT, so BMT, and here I will say set, let me save it into Satya dot, I will say subset. Okay, and the condition which I am going to give is where T is greater than let's say 200. T is the name of the variable which I am using right now, and I have done it run. Let's say proc print data is equal to Satya dot subset, and then run. So let me go back to Satya, and here you will say the Satya dot subset. It's running. No result set. It says file satya.subset.data does not exist. Okay, but before that it says the dataset BMT may be incomplete. When this step was stopped, there was 0 observation and 0 variable. Oh, okay. So there is an error basically. Now I doubt I may have replaced this data set. Okay. Before I go ahead, let me print this data set, because I think by mistake I have replaced one of the vital data set from the SAS help library. Oh, okay, so I have already done that. That's the problem. Now I would not be able to see this BMT data set into my SAS library. Okay, that was a bad news for me, but no worries. I'll go ahead and look for any other data set which I can use in my practice. So I have just double clicked on base SAS. It seems to be a good data set, and let's say I will say it's team, and here I will say Boston. Okay, so I'm gonna create another data set out of this. I'll say baseball, baseball, and where team is equal to baseball, Boston. So I'm going to create a data set called uh, Satya dot, let's say I'm gonna say it Boston. Okay, I'm going to create a data set called Boston, and it will have the data from SAS help dot baseball data set where team name is equal to Boston. Right now I'll need to print later on the same data set. Okay, still there is some problem. I need to look into the code or the error message. Okay, Boston. It says that there was zero observation found. Okay, it means for Boston it didn't get any value. Okay, okay, the problem is that if I'm writing anything in double quotes, it becomes case sensitive into SAS, and that's the reason that I didn't find any variable or any value. But this time, okay, okay, this time it has created a data set called Boston. So if I go back and see into the uh, Satya library, you will find a data set called Boston, right? So it has created a subset of existing data set, right? Now let us suppose that you need to create multiple subsets in one go, right? So basis, Boston, I have created one. Now let us suppose you want other data set. How would I say that? So in order to quote my question, I need to go back to baseball. Now let's say for Auckland I want to create another data set. For Chicago I want to create another data set, and for California I want to create another data set. So how I'm going to write that query, that would matter if I write where. So in that case, I'll have to, not where exactly, I will have to uh, see, in that case my query will change a bit, and what it would be, let me just write that for you. Now the first line will, let's say I'm saying it Boston, then let's say I'm gonna say it depending on the state, I need to create a data set. So what basically this matter, I'll say it California, Then the other which I'm gonna create it, I will say Satya dot, I'll say Auckland, right? I'm gonna create 3 data sets in one go. So I have set the same data set called baseball, but my condition will change here. I will say if team is equal to Boston, then output Satya dot Boston. I'll change this, I'll repeat the same statement. If team is equal to California, then I'll say Satya dot California, and let's say else if team is equal to Auckland, then data should be Satya dot Auckland, and here I'll finish all of my statements and then I will run it. I've just run it. Let's see, it says if you look at the log window, it says there were 10 observation read from the dataset SAS.baseball in the first case. In the second, it has, if you look at the last log which was created, so it said there were 322 observation read from the dataset from the baseball, and out of that 10 were for 10 observation and 20 variables for Satya Boston, 13 for California, 12 for Auckland. And if you go back to Satya library, you will find that these database got created like Boston, California, these two, and then Auckland. Here we go. So this is the way like how we have created multiple data sets. Now the opposite of it, like how we are going to add observation from various data sets into one. So just opposite of that how to add multiple data sets into one. So for that, basically what we can do is like, let's see that what I'm going to do now. I'll show you that the Boston has, I clicked on Boston, has 13 rows or the observation. California has 13. So both of them have the 13 rows observation. So if I go ahead and combine both of these data sets, so what like the resulting data set will have 26 rows, right? So let's say the data set which I'm going to create is, let's say, combination of Bos and Cal. It would be more than 8 characters, so I will say Bos Cal, right? Boston, California, and then I will say set Satya dot Boston and Satya dot California. So here we go, and I'll say run. So as soon as I'm going to run this statement, you will see that both the data sets will get combined into one, and it will create another data set called Boscal. So this is the Boscal, and you can see that it will have 26 observation into it. 23, okay. Oh, sorry. Boston has 10 observation only. So 10 and 13, that's 23. So the final or the resultant data set has 13, 26 observation, 23 observation. Similarly, if you want to add 3 in 1, so what basically you need to write is you just need to replicate the code, and here I will say, so after Satya.California I will say Satya.Auckland. Okay, So we are going to combine all of these data sets, and let's say I have given it a name called OL, Auckland. So this has got created. If I click it, you will see it will have all the combined rows or the observation from my Boston, California, and Auckland datasets. This is how basically we combine various data sets vertically, right? But there is another term or another word which we call merging. So that comes when we combine multiple data sets horizontally. So this is basically what today's topic was, that how we are going to do some match merging review, or how we are going to merge our data sets. So basically SAS uses the term merge to describe the process of combining variable, or when I say variable, that's nothing but the columns from SAS, two or more data sets. So for example, you could have an employee dataset containing ID, number, and names. And if you had another dataset, hours, containing ID, numbers, along with the job class and the number of hours worked, you might want to add the name from the employee dataset to each observation in the hour dataset, right? So this is what, similarly as in Excel you can do a VLOOKUP, we want similar kind of functionality to be done, that in employee data you want number of hours to be added. So what you will do, you will try to merge those data sets, and with help of employee ID from two different data sets, on basis of employee ID, you will fetch the number of hours against each employer. So this is what nothing but the sort functionality is. Now in order to sort those data or those data sets, you need to first sort the data and then set by the variable or variables that link the two data sets next to your name. Each of the data sets in the merge statement, be sure to follow the merge statement by statement, naming the variable or variable that tells SAS which observation to place in same observation, right? So match merging combines observation from one or more SAS data sets into a single observation. As we just saw, or before starting this merge concept that we were combining two data sets with vertically, but merge is basically for the horizontal. Join, I would say, in SQL we have a similar topic called join. So in it, basically what happens, that data sets into a single observation in a new data set, then based on the values on one or more common variables. When you use the merge statement, with the by statement, the data must be stored or indexed by variable. Alright, it has to be sorted first of all, then only you can merge two data sets. The output data set contains both matches as well as non-matches, so therefore it has more observation than either input data sets. So that's what the reason is. Now let's move ahead and see some examples. You can see that here we have two data sets. The first one, student, which contains first name and the last name and the register number. Then the second data set has the registration number. Then various subjects called analysis, sampling, or testing. Also, below is the code to use for generating these data sets. So that's a good thing for us. Let's go ahead and create these data sets first of all. So this is the first data set which I'm going to create now. It has data satya.student and a variable called first name, then last name, then register number, data lines or cards, that's the student name, and then one or if it has the last name. So I'm going to run this and it will create students data set that you can see here, and I'm going to create another data set. So it has another data set as well. So you can see the first data set is this, where I have register number, analysis, sampling, and testing. And if I click on the next data set, it has first name, last name, and register number, right? So I have already created two data sets. Now I'm trying to merge these both data sets so that we can see some merging results. And you can notice that in these two data sets I have kept one column register number common, right? So basis this column I can merge these data sets, right? So let me go ahead and tell about these datasets. Basically what these are, that both these datasets have same number of observation. Great, fair enough. Then suppose you group them using by variable on register number, the resulting merged output dataset will have the same number of observation as input dataset, right? Because it would be one-to-one mapping. So that's to show that both the data sets or both the the resultant data set will also have the same number of observation as the existing ones. So you can see that student and then first name or first semester data set, these are the two data sets. Now if you write a code to merge these two data sets, resulting data set will have the same number of observation as the input data set. Now this is the code which they have written. Now let me just type in the code merge underscore data, and what I'm going to do is merge my both the data sets. So I'll say student satya.student, then satya.semester, and I will join them because the sorting is the least requirement, first requirement. Then I will join them by the register number, and I'll say run. Okay, let's see proc print data is equal to merge data, which is I'm creating into satya.library, and then run. So by doing so, I have got a resultant data set this, wherein we have all the variables from dataset A and then dataset B. So we have first name, last name, register number, then analysis, sampling, and testing. I've got all the variables included into one data set. So this is the way how we can merge two data sets basis one or multiple common columns. So we had register number here. So basis that I have added those two data sets into one. Now, like the example which we just taken, or we have taken, had the number of rows, or I would say one-to-one mapping, basis that we had you know for each row we had a corresponding match into the another data set, and that is the reason that when we have joined them, we have got a same number of observation or same number of rows into the merged data set. Now you may want to merge the data set to contain only those rows where right, like as if now in this data set we saw that we found because there was one-to-one mapping, that is why we have a similar kind of observation. But in case, okay, let's first of all let me show you the another example, so that the thing or the explanation which I wanted to give you I can explain better, right? So I'll go to the next slide. Okay, and here is that here we have two different data sets. Data set bank customer, which contains the account number and names of some customers in the bank. Then data set call center info, which contains the data updated from the call center records. The bank's call center have contacted them, some of the customers, and updated their phone number. Some customers have more than one phone number, uh, and the other customers could not be reached. So a underscore dataset banks underscore customer, then dataset call center underscore info, right? So we have these two data sets, and you can see that we have common column, common variable called account number, right? So as of now, like we have a common variable called account number, but you can see that in the dataset call center info we have more values. So you can say that it would not be one-to-one mapping, it may differ. So suppose we want to merge this data by account number. Some of the data appears in the first data set but not in the second data set. Account number 1112. Also, some data appears in the second dataset but not in the first, account number 1116. Also, the other account numbers appear in both the datasets even though three are some repetitions. So observation that come from the both datasets are called matches. Matches means where the account number will match, right? So you can see we have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and here we have only 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16, right? So observation that come from both the data sets are called matches, and observation that come from one data set but not from the other data set called non-matches. So it could happen either way, like the record may appear in first data set but not in second, or it could appear in the second data set but not in the first data set. So those would be non-matches. So when we merge by account number, we end up getting consolidated data sets with both matches as well as non-matches, right? So the matches where we have one-to-one mapping against the account number, and non-matches where we don't have any mapping at all. So the data set, you can just look at the example here, what they are using, that data master data meta. So merge bank customer and call center info by account number and run. So you can see in the below example or the screenshot they have given the results. So you can see that against 1112 you have just name, and then there is no details, the telephone or the work type detail, right? Phone type detail. Similarly, in the blue part, or the blue portion, you will see that you have account number, phone number, type, but you don't have name, right? So the observation shaded in green represent the matches, and observation shaded in red came only from the first data set, whereas observation shaded in blue are coming from the second data set. So you can see the number of observation got increased into the result merged data set. Those are, all those will always be more than the existing number of rows in existing data sets, where there is no match, or there would be one to multiple matches. But in case, suppose that if there is one to one mapping, then definitely you will have the same number of rows into like input as well as into the resultant data set. Okay. So now we will be talking about using in variable to select the IDs that are in both data set. So before I go ahead, let me just talk to you about that what is the importance of it. So you may want to merge data set to contain only those observation where Alright, so SAS provides a method of controlling which observation you want in the merged data set. To demonstrate how this works, let's merge two data sets as before, but add a data set option called N and examine the result. Okay, so here you can say that input N and input N, they have taken two variables called var1 and var2. So the N data set option creates a variable that can be used to identify matches and non-matches. Okay, so it is, you can say, an intermediate variable which gets created at a time of merging two data sets, and it tells you whether to what are the matches and what are non-matches. So as given the example, you can see syntax data output merge input one, right, by variable. So these variables like variable var1 and var2 are temporary variables. It depends up to you whether you want to show it into the results or you don't. So they are initialized to 0 at the start of every iterations. If input 1 contributes to the output data set and input 2 does not, then var1 is equal to var1 or var2 is equal to 0. If input 1 does not contribute to the output dataset and input 2 does, the var1 is equal to 0 and var2 is equal to 1. If both input as well as input contributes to the output dataset, then var is equal to 1 and var2 is equal to 1. So I'll repeat it again, right? So like you use inner join into sorry, the outer join into SQL Server. So if you want everything from dataset 1, then you will be writing var1 is equal to 1, and if you want everything from output 2, sorry, the dataset 2, then you would mention var1 is equal to 0 but var2 is equal to 1. But if you want both the datasets to be the result from both the datasets, then you will be using var1 is equal to 1, var2 is equal to 1. So the example which we just used, let's use it here. So the merge input I'll be writing here is A is equal to B. Now if I run this, you can see that I have got the result in the same way, but this time I am not taking this. I have just taken A, no change, but let's say is equal to 1, still the same, no variance. Okay, consider the following code. Right now, let me go back to the slide and put a code for you. So you can see data, the data which we have here is, it says that data satya.name, then in file data lines pad, input code name is again a name column which we have taken, that is the character type. Alright, and it has the data lines and the various values which we have entered here. So let me just run it. Save an observation to variables. Let's say print run. It will print the latest dataset created into SAS. This is the data which I have got as per this dataset. Here we go. Now this is used to construct a dataset that contains the employee code and the name of factory. Okay. Now every morning when employee comes at the gate, he has to swipe his ID card for entry, and while leaving, he swipes to exit. The system captures the entry code, log in and log out, and saves it into the text file, which is later imported to SAS dataset for conversion into other formats. Since this is a factory, only those with the card are allowed entry. The code shown below is used to import the swipes of all people entering the factory on 2 days, October 10th and October 11th. It is just a sample, right? So the first one we had the list of people, and the second data set which we have here is the log between October 10 and October 2013. So let me run this as well. I'll save this data set into again Satya library. So you can see that we have the employee code, the date is in numeric format, then we have the login time and then the logout time. So we have recorded all these values into the SAS, then resulting dataset logs like this. Now on close examination, we can see some discrepancies in the data. There are several reasons why that might happen. The interview candidates forgetting IDs, or the third-party audits or clients. The table below shows the invalid codes. Right? We have invalid codes, these. Now suppose the management wants to crack down on employees who are coming late, disappearing early, then usually data is pulled by HR and presented to managers for reasons and excuses, or for feedback or scoldings. So this is exactly what we need to do now, right? So in that case, we only need to pull out the data that corresponds to the employees in the company and not the invalid IDs. Here we merge the two data sets, since we are merging the data sets by variable called code. So in both the data, here we have a, let me go back here. So in this data set, even you have a code, and if I look at the previous, then you have the code. So in the first data set, you have code and name. In second, you have code, date, login, and logout time. So what we can do is that in that case, we only need to pull out the data that corresponds to the employees in the company, not the invalid IDs, right? So here we merge the two data sets. Since we are merging the data sets by a variable called code, we sort both the names and logs by code output the new data sets into name1 and logs2. So let's sort first of all sort both the data sets. So the first data set which I had, that was satya.name. I'll say, let's say, I will also say for name I will say proc sort data is equal to satya dot name1, and I'll say set satya dot name. So you know that basically set operator always, and then I need to type in by. Okay, this is the way of writing this. Or what else you can do is you can write like data is equal to, and output is equal to this by code. So this is the one way of running this program. Okay, something is wrong here. What could that be? Okay, out is equal to. Okay, so it's names, not name. That's why I was thinking that why it's not creating it. So it's names basically. Now if you look at this, it says 7 observation and from the dataset into the other dataset being created. Similarly, I need to sort the other dataset, which was satya.logs. Let's say I need to say logs1. Again, I'm sorting it basis code. So you can see here that it has 15 observation, but still it's got sorted, right? Now I am going to merge these two data sets, the other two data sets which I have just created, and I would say data. Okay, just give it a minute. Okay, so let's say I will call it dataset library satya dot log name. I'm just going to combine both the data sets, and here I will say merge names 1, and then here I will say in is equal to 1, bracket close, then logs1, and here I will say in is equal to 2. If 1 is equal to 1 and 2 is equal to 2, bytecode format date 9 dot, and then run. So this is going to create another data set after merging the two other data sets which we created earlier. Here we go, and then run. So if I look at this file work dot, okay, names this, okay, names. So basically it has to be Satya dot this, and it has to be Satya dot this. Very good. Satya dot log name, no observation. Variable is uninitialized. Okay, let me just look at the data set which we have created, that is log name. So log name, where would that log name would be? Here it is. Okay, it does not have any data yet. Okay, so no worries. Let me just look into the code. It may not have created any data set. Okay, the final result will have the details of employees, login time and logout time for 2 days. Okay, it says that the variable is uninitialized. Okay. Okay, because the variable is uninitialized, it's not giving any, results into the data. Okay, the data set would be sorted by code. If you need the answer sorted by the date and then by employee, you will have to run the following code, that proc sort. So basically what code you will have to write, that's proc sort is data is equal to log n and out times by date code, run. Both results are shown in the next page. So you can see in the first of the case it has sorted them default in default order, but in the second case we have sorted this by date and code. Okay, now let's move and talk about matches, what we have been discussing a lot from the beginning, that for outputting the matches matches alone to the output data set, we use the condition if 1 is equal to 1 and 2 is equal to 1. So we can also write down the same condition as if 1 and 2. So the question, what do the following condition do? If 1 or if 2, right? So that is the question, and we need to talk about it, that what basically in is equal to variable, or what basically this does. Okay, so before I go ahead and let me talk about the type of merges we have. So you can say that we have multiple types of merges. It could be one to one, then one to many, and many to many merges. So basically in merge example shown previously, or whatever we have done, there were only one observation for each value of the by variable in both data sets. This is called one-to-one mapping or merge. You may have a situation where one data set has only one observation for each value of the by variable, but the other has more than one observation for each value of the by variable. This is referred to as one-to-many merges. As an example, suppose you want to merge dataset BERT or any dataset with the dataset with multiple values of ID. So that we can do. Okay. But a many-to-many merge has a potential to be castapheric. So if you have exactly the same number of observations for each by value in two data sets, many-to-many merges worked as expected. So if you have more than one observation with a given by value in each of the two data sets and number of observations differ in the two data sets, you should not attempt to use a merge statement to combine the data set to see what appeared in this situation. Now look at the example what we are going to take. Alright, so basically just now look at the slide right now, that it says that people coming with an ID could also pose a problem for management, since a factory is a no place to have unauthorized people enter. Sometimes the people who come in be explained. Sometimes it could be a serious breach of security. That's why factories keep logs at the gate that so that contains they can contain the detail of every visitor. As far as the data set is concerned, we are looking at the outputting only the observation that come from second data set logs, which do not have a corresponding match in the first data set's name. Alright, so using the same temporary variable 1 and 2, we change the condition to create a new dataset called no-id, which contains only the non-id entries. Checking with security at the gate can confirm whether it's fine. So the program would be to date no ID merge names where in is equal to 1, logs in is equal to 2. So if 2 is equal to 1 and 1 is equal to 0 by code, like format date of date 9, so this is what happens in case of matches. But in case of non-matches, to write only non-matches to the output dataset, we use the condition if 1 is equal to 0 and 2 is equal to 1. The same condition can also be true if 2 and 1 not 1. In the same way we have if 1 and not 2 if 1 not equal to 2. Condition: what does if 1 not equal to 2 do? Okay. Okay, now let's move ahead and talk about the further details about these various, the common variables. So in this scenario where we have, merge three tables. So the scenario number one, where the table 1 and 2 have the common variable, and table 2 and 3 have the common variable. Ultimately, table 1 and 3 are entirely different in the sense that they have no common variable. The other scenario was like the bank has a data set. The similar kind of scenario we can apply the merge over there. Like a bank has a database with some customers. That particular table contains customers who has been with the bank since 1999. So first table, we can implement the similar scenario over there by creating three tables. One table contains all account number, then the number of customer, his address, as well as the dates where the account was opened. For convenience sake, the address would be referred to as address 1, address 2. Then address 2, in 1999, when these customers opened their account, not many people had mobile phones. Later, when some customers came to the bank, these mobiles were added in separate file called table 2, which has only the accounts or the mobile numbers. However, not all. All right. And in table 3, and in table 3, basically the PAN numbers, which are now became mandatory by 2006. The bank updates PAN numbers from marketing database, which has only the phone numbers and PAN numbers for the several customers. So this is how basically we can create these tables and update, follow the same scenario. Now, more details about table 1. The table 1 contains account number, name of customer, address, simplified to address 1, address 2, and the date that has the account which was opened. Since this is the original file, we were not going to change any data in it. Go to generate tables in the work library. Here we go. Here we go. The dataset got created. All right. Now, here we use the $in formats to input the data with spaces. After each number, we use spaces to travel to the next record. Okay. Table 2 contains the account number and mobile number of the customer. So whenever customer come to the bank for transaction, their mobile numbers are updated. The order by which this table is updated depends on the order by which people come to the bank. Also, not all customers come to the bank, and among those who come, they may be some who don't have a mobile, so don't wish to give the mobile number. So let me just create the another data set or the another table. This is also again going to be created in work library. Table 1, table 2, two tables got created. Then note, while merging this data, we do not add the information about customers who appear in table 2, but who do not appear in table 1 also. Table 2 can be sorted since it's not historical. Now, table 3 contains PAN number and mobile number for some customers. This data was taken from credit card details. There may be some matches and there may not some other matches. So this is the third table which we need to create. So finally, we have created three tables, table 1, table 2, table 3 in the work library. Now the work will begin. Basically, note, while merging this dataset, we do not add the information about customers who appear in table 3, but who do not appear in table 1. Also, the table 3 cannot be sorted since it belongs to another department. Now, the mini project which we are planning to do is that match merge mini project, right? So basically what you need to do is let's do it together, that merge table 1 and table 2 before the sort table 1 by table 2 by account number, include any matches, call the final table by different name, table 4. Okay, so these are the various steps which you need to follow in order to complete this project, and the desired output would be like this. Then what you will do, like first of all you will merge table 1 and table 2, and before merging them, you will sort table 2 by account number, include only matches, right? So it would be in is equal to 1. Then a table 4 must be merged with table 3. Include only entries from table 4. Also both table 4 as well as table 3 must be sorted by mobile number. Okay. So these are the various merges and sorts which you need to apply. And then the resultant table you will call at table 5. Table 5 is presently sorted by mobile number. It must be sorted by account number, and resultant table must be called as final 1999. The government now has a rule that all customers must have a PAN number. So now the bank's customer care must contact all the customers that update the PAN number. Since the customer care do not know, SAS exports final 1999 to an Excel sheet so the customer care can contact the customers. Okay. Now the next thing which we are going to talk about, this mini project, you will be doing it as assignment. All the steps are given, the result is given, it is just you need to apply sort and merge. Then altering variable names. Okay, with match merging, two situations might require altering variable names. So the pointers could be the by variable have a different names in input dataset being merged, right? The dataset being merged have identically named variable that must both kept to be in the merge output. Agreed. In both cases, the rename dataset option can be used to alter the variable names to get the desired result. Okay. Here we have two tables, employee database and employee phone. Let's create We have created these two databases, datasets now. It has employee ID and name, and the other one has IDs and phone numbers. Okay, let's see. Now the variable employee ID in employee database is referred as ID, and in employee phone, okay, we are unable to merge the data by common variable employee ID or ID owing the reason. We get the following error. So you can see into the log window right now, which is showing here. We have just used the code called data employee final merge employee database and an employee phone by employee ID. But you can find it out that in one of the data sets we call it employee ID, but in other we called as ID. So these are the challenges. I mean, we know that both the columns are same, but the name of these columns are different. So this is the case which shows that it could be incorrect, or the name is not matching. That is why it gives the error. So in order to overcome this situation, so that we do not get this problem again, we need to use variable employee ID, or we can use this rename option. Just like we have earlier seen in option, we also have rename option, and the syntax would be uh, now you can see that merge dataset 1, rename old variable to new variable, dataset 2 an additional statement, whatever if you want to write. The name of the old variable would be converted to new variable for this merging. We can also have renames for both datasets being merged. For example, if we use the following, the data employee final. Okay, now let me run this for you so that you know exactly. That's employee final. You can see you have employee ID, name and phone, and the code which we have written that shows rename ID to employee ID. So we are just renaming this column to employee ID, as in the first data set we had employee ID. Now if we rename it and we have given it the same name as the other variable, we can easily merge these data sets. So that is exactly what we were looking for. Now the running code gives this example, this output. We can also modify the code to input only the matches or only contributions from one data set alone. For example, the code below gives only entries from the table employee phone. So let me run this program. Employee final, and if I run it, you will see, okay, it was already open, so that might have given an error. Let me run this program once again. Now it got created, and if I open it, here we go. So you'll see data employee final, merge employee data set in one. Okay, so as if now, like we have given if2, So it is going to give me all the records from employee table phone, right? Or employee phone. If had it been one, it would have given me all the data from employee database. So that is what we do in case of we need to change the contributions from the table, that which table basically we want. Okay, so the following code creates two tables. All right, it's a simple code, a simple uh, program which we need to, I'm going to run it once again. Here we go. Table 2, basically it have created employee database 2 and employee database phone 2. Let's see that what it's talk about. When you merge this data, since the variable phone appears in both the input data sets, the value will be overwritten in the merge. Okay, now the situation is that you have this phone column in both the data sets and we are planning to merge it. So what is going to happen? That would be our new challenge, right? So in case like you come across such a problem, what you can do is just look at this. What we have done, merge by employee ID. We have the same column phone in both the table. So you can see that it's got merged, and if you see into the final table, you have phone at once only. Okay, but in the it was present in both the data sets. So what now? If you want to see it twice, what you can do is you can rename one instance, otherwise it would be overwritten by the other instance. So in order to see, you will have to, in order to retain both the values, we rename the variable phone to either or both. Okay, so this is exactly what we are going to do in this program here, or this code here, that we have renamed one of the phone variable into landline and other into the mobile. So if proc print run, so now this time this is going to rename one into landline and other into mobile, and now you can see the results as well. Okay, so this is how you can retain two columns with the same name into the result output. Okay, now the biggest thing is like, okay, so before I go to the next slide and show something, let me just revolve or give a revision, as a revision of all the topics which we have covered, right? So from beginning till now, we have covered all or most of the chapters which we were supposed to cover in base SAS, right? Let me just open. All right. So basically, if I start, like if I go back to the topics for the base SAS, so we have covered everything, almost everything what we were supposed to cover. Now, if I if I talk about from the introduction and all, that overview of SAS foundation, so we went through, SAS based software, we saw the components of SAS base, and we went through the ERG guide, enterprise guide, that what all components are there in ERG guide and how to work with both the softwares. We saw like what all tool or pages are there, what all options are there where we can get the help from. We saw that, right? Then we saw like the part of SAS program, whether how many portion are there in SAS program. So that I told you that it could be data part or the proc part. Then how to submit that SAS program. I told you how to submit that program. Then working with the program syntax, what all points you need to keep in mind while writing a SAS program, whether a semicolon is required or not, and if you don't write semicolon, then what could happen? Your program could be wrong. Then examining and accessing SAS libraries. I talked about SAS library is nothing but the reference to a location where your dataset or file need to be saved in, or the dataset need to be saved in, right? Then we saw like how to create SAS reports, how to modify them, how to enhance them. We use title, footer line, or report title, various options or statements in order to create your report beautiful. Then formatting data values. We went through format in formats, right? Then reading the SAS data set. So we saw a lot of options through which we either printed the data set or we saw the prop content, how to read various things in a data set. Then we saw how to import data from spreadsheet or the text file. We went through the text file, pulling the data from text file. Then we saw miss over, flow over, failover, various options. We saw conditional processing and the various SAS functions which are available in SAS. Then recently we saw that how to merge data one to one, one to many, or with no matches or matches. Then we saw how to use proc freak, proc mean, proc univariate, output delivery systems and all. Okay, so we have covered all of these topics. We have covered loops, arrays, all the most of the good topics, right? Okay, just for your information, there are two important things which are covered into advanced SAS session. Those are SAS macros and proc SQL. So these two things come into SAS. They come into SAS advanced. SAS Advance, and basically macros are the functionality, basically functionality or the program which provides you the functionality. This is basically the program, not exactly the SAS functionality. It is the program which provides the functionality of doing a repetitive task. So similarly, like if you want to running a loop, you can run that loop inside of a macro, or macro is basically a program which you just need to run once and it will run for the complete procedure. Similarly, you have proc SQL. So basically the SQL functionality which we use in SAS, that's what comes under proc SQL. So these two things come into advanced chapter or advanced chapters of base SAS. But before that, whatever I have gone through in previous chapters till now, I have already provided you the material. Basis that, I hope that you need to go to the project which I'm giving you to do. So this is the SAS project. Basically, it has number of questions, and you need to go through all of them. So you can see it has number of questions. Though I have provided the answer for all of these or most of these, but I would expect you to go through the question, try to solve them by your own, so that you will know that what is your level. And still, if you have any question after that, you can let us know or talk to IntelliPath, and they will arrange the advanced classes for you. So I guess that's all for today, and we have done covered most of the things in base SAS. So that's all. Uh, Hope you would have learned a lot, a new technique or new skills in SAS. Basically, would have been a beginning class for you, but again, a lot many things have been covered into it. Do the practice or complete this SAS project. So that's all I would say. All the best for your bright career, bright future. Thank you so much for joining our classes. Thank you so much. Have a nice time. Best of luck.